Hello, everyone. This is Kyle Welch with RCR Wireless News. I want to thank everyone for attending Accelerating Small Cell Rollout Through Process Automation, presented by Amdocs in collaboration with IP Access. Our presenters today are Gavin Ray from IP Access and Zavika Nave from Amdocs. At this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Zavika.
Hello, and welcome to this IP Access and Amdocs joint webinar. Today we will be talking about accelerating small cell rollout through process automation. But first, let me introduce ourselves. My name is Zvika Nave, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager in Amdocs OSS Division, responsible for Amdocs Network Rollout Solutions in general, and specifically for the small cell solutions. Joining me today is Gavin Ray from IP Access. Gavin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, welcome everyone. So I'm Gavin, I'm the Head of Product Management and Marketing at IBE Access. And as such, I'm responsible for our full portfolio, which covers 2G, 3G, and 4G small cells. And within this portfolio, we have a complete suite of end-to-end solutions that includes the access points, but also gateways and management systems with full FCAT support. And today we're going to talk about how we put all of these to market with Amdocs to accelerate the enterprise market volume. If I start with a quick introduction to this new relationship, which we put to press on Monday, then here's a few examples of the coverage we've been receiving. We're delighted with this uptake. And there's clearly a very high interest in the entire topic of putting enterprise small cells to market. And with our experience in over 12 years of small cell delivery, this is an opportunity for us to put more of our story together with Amdocs to create a complete joint solution. And really, this is all about telling the story of how we deliver enterprise small cells through a standardization and an integration process that includes all of the back office systems and solutions of Amdocs to actually bring a complete and repeatable solution to market. So if we just move on to the agenda for the webinar today.
So today we will start the sessions by briefly talking about worldwide small cell rollouts and basically give a brief update about small cell, forecasted growth, volume, segments, and positioning. Now, since this webinar is about accelerating small cell rollout, we will first elaborate about small cell business challenges, discussing the volume curve, the difference between macro site rollout versus small cell rollout, and discussing why some of the existing processes and tools are perhaps inadequate. Following the small cell challenges, we will present a project orchestration tool that enables to accelerate small cell rollout through process automation, providing visibility and providing control for all the project users and ensuring a single source of truth. And finally, we will share with you a use case for small cell rollout from a tier 1 operator in North America and share with you, of course, the results that were achieved. And as mentioned, during these sessions, you're more than welcome to post questions using the control panel on your screens, and we will review all of those questions and present those that we have time for at the end. Starting with updates on small cell worldwide rollouts. I think it is safe to say that with regards to small cells, there's a bit of a gap between expectation and reality. And that gap can partially be explained by the challenges network operators are facing when deploying small cells. Take, for example, the cost of services required to get small cell in the field is similar in some ways to deploying macro-based station, but of course, without all the major physical engineering cost. Now, this early market experience and what seems like unfavorable cost structure has caused operators to postpone small cell deployments and actually push forwards with additional macro sites in order to densify their network. So, though 98% of operators, you can see it right here according to Infonetics and Small Cell Forum, 98% believe that small cell are essential to their future, basically. We have only about 50 existing deployments of 3G operators. The challenge we are addressing is how do we, Amdocs and IP access. How do we are able to help the next 150 operators to roll out their own small cell network during 2015, and of course take that to volume. We will do that by automating small cell rollout process to create a very clear cost for small cells. Now, to provide a wider view of the small cell market, I would like to hand over to Gavin for more information on that.
Thanks, speaker. So we've used this infographic here to paint a picture of the shape of the market, and it's illustrative. What it really shows on the right-hand side, moving to the left, is a continuum from the very largest macro sites and macro cell delivery solutions, going down towards the metro, what we call flood fill, where you've got continuous large-scale metro coverage, into metro infill, where you're tactically deploying metro coverage in places where you need it. But that continuum really goes all the way down into the enterprise market with medium and larger solutions that then get increasingly smaller till you end up with a SOHO small medium office solution, and then you end up at the residential point. And what we're trying to illustrate here is really what defines that, because the simplest example of this continuum is price, the very cheapest small cells on the left, the most expensive macro cells on the right. The size of the triangles is not really literal, but it's to illustrate the sort of the residual volumes in these markets. And the size of these individual segments in small cells is dictated by two or three key things. In the middle, we've shown the user count, the typical number of continuous users that can be connected to the small cell. And we've also shown the power across the top. So the combination of the user counts and the power setting, combined with the amount of silicon processing power you need within a small cell, dictates the sort of the fundamental internal cost of the cell, and then you're building a package around it to create a unit that you deploy physically. But of course, these cells can come in different size formats to hit that price point. Their capacity is therefore different, and you need to deploy them in different combinations with different design rules, depending on the size of the office or the size of the environment you're going into, whether it's actually an office space or a retail or a particular market vertical. You're actually looking at the deployment density of the cell and the user count and the traffic profiles. So what we're really saying here, that a small cell is a small cell. It's defined by an IUH and an internet backhaul. It's defined by, let's call it an aggressive price point. But actually the shape of the cell and its deployment is going to have slightly different rules on application. And so the whole discussion that we have today, when we talk about provisioning and delivery, is all based on the fact that there are a set of differences dictated by the cell size and by its actual delivery. But the fundamental objective is always to be in control of the complexity, the cycle time, and the repeatability of the process. And so if I now start to put some color on this with a quick look at the unit volumes in the industry today, I'd like to use this slide next, which is from Joe Madden over at Mobile Experts, which he updated in December. And what you can see is a figure approaching 3 million small cells in the wideband CDMA market, of which we've certainly delivered well over a third in various projects globally, but the very heavy dominance of the residential application. So that's really about technology proving and software quality and dealing with the real-world deployments of large numbers of cells in so many different handsets and RF environments. But actually the characteristic of this graph that's really interesting and really important, particularly for this discussion, is you see the significant growth in the enterprise volumes, which actually implies a number of things. If you put this together with the profile we showed you that small cells can come in different sizes with different characteristics, the key point is to make this market work. You need to have the ability to take everything that's been learned from small cells today and actually automate and simplify and drive them to market with solutions that are very practical and realistic for operators that fit within their businesses as they stand today. And that really is what's behind the rest of this webinar. We're talking about what does that mean to real people running real divisions within real operators. So let's move on to that and see what that tells us.
Now, since this webinar is about accelerating small cell rollout, we should first elaborate about small cell business challenges, discussing the volume curve and the difference between macro site rollout versus small cell rollout, and also discussing why some of the existing processes and tools are perhaps inadequate. Gavin, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you. So what I'd like to do is paint a picture of the market challenge, the business challenge, but use it against the volume curve that we show here, which is illustrative. It's a point really making that there are 3 stages to reaching high volume. The phase 1 of any small cell deployment strategy for a given solution class is about proving the technology works, going through the labs, the pilots, and first deployments, and getting enough volume to teach you what the real world drives you to deal with. And that's all about proving the technology and proving it's functional, not as a technology, but as a technology within a business that's aimed at making money and satisfying users. But you exit that process going into a business cycle, phase 2. What you're trying to do is build a business to make commercial offers to satisfy customers with a repeatable market offering that is very tangible to a certain class of business. Now, clearly, operators net have immense subscriber bases and target markets addressable. But this is all about choosing the particular market segments with a proposition that can work and finding the right way to build up your organizational ability, to complete your process template building, to understand how you standardize what you do, and deal with all those things that perhaps a macro had to deal with 15, 20 years ago. For small cells, we're developing the business around the requirements. But of course, the difference now is that there are many existing systems, there are many existing teams and organizational structures. So actually what we talk about is you make the most to leverage everything you have today, fitting in the small cells, to make use of it, to make use of the organization, and standardize what you do, and then monitor and improve. And as you learn to do that with an offer to market that is working, you can create new offers for new markets. And at the point you can actually extend your offer, you enter phase 3. Phase 3 is about building substantial revenue to contribute to the top line across the entire business. The organization is now highly integrated, the systems are working and proven, everything's running to a high performance driven activity, workflow is optimized. And at this point, what you've really reached is the ability to replicate and build new solution offers, to customize and adjust them to individual markets, to proliferate them. But the important point here is that you can proliferate from a proven standardization point, which means that you can control all your costs and also control the quality and the dependability of the offer that you're creating. And really, that's really why we talk about this throughout the whole of this session today. And in fact, on the next slide, what we've got for you is if you like, an illustration of this. You know, it's different in every operator you go to. But what we've tried to capture here is the life cycle of a cell delivery. And we've tried to create an indication of what is the complexity, whether it's high or medium versus the simplicity of an activity. Now, in a macro environment, you're delivering massive projects with massive budgets. You can withstand some of the complexities. It is only right that you have complex site acquisition and site planning and site delivery and security and delivery assurance processes. But of course, in the small cell world, you have to automate and simplify that. And so what we contrast and show here is that through the complete life cycle of a cell delivery, small cells, to reach full economics, have to remove every one of the complexities. So in that column that's yellow and red for small cells under the urban indoor solution, we actually have to turn every one of those boxes green. And in fact, the whole purpose of the Amdocs IP Access relationship is to take the knowledge we have from our experiences and cast that within the Amdocs systems to do just that. Exactly. And now, Speaker, perhaps you can just look more inside how that's actually done.
Exactly. Thank you, Gavin. So, as Gavin mentioned, and we can see it very clearly in the presented table, there's a difference between the processes of rollout of macro site versus small cell, either indoor or outdoor. And the main challenge, I think, revolves around 2 aspects. First is securing optimal site location, considering both the backhaul location as well as the site location. And second, the logistical issues and complexity to provide full control, and also, I would say, a certain degree of reusability. You can see it mentioned here several times in the table. Reusability of the processes for providing and managing the rollout of new small cell site. Now, during this webinar, we will focus on accelerating small cell rollout through process automation. And the aim of automation is to simplify and streamline the rollout project, enabling higher degree of process reusability and eventually reducing the total time to complete small cell deployment site. When dealing with small cell network rollout, the processes are inherently cross-functional. So managing an end-to-end process involves many stages in the process, from project initiation, from planning, design, implementation, all the way to building and operate. Now, at the same time, there are many different organizational teams and departments involved, from project manager, finance, planning engineer, field force, and operation, as well as many different tools and systems involved. And as you can see at the bottom of this slide, each and every of these different users is using his own tools to manage his specific role in the project, sometimes even using whiteboards, using sticky notes, email, Excel spreadsheet, and everything in order to communicate and describe the business process. Now, though I'm a big fan of sticky notes, I think we can all agree that when it comes to wide small cell network rollout deployment, or for rollouts involving multiple system and organizational group, sticky notes might not be the best tool. Now, on the other hand, current tools just don't scale. I mean, the existing project management tools, they were designed in the days when service providers only needed to deploy a few hundreds of network elements per month. But today, project managers are faced with planning, deploying, or upgrading thousands of network elements using tool which needs to scale across multiple systems and hundreds or even thousands of people and projects. Current tools basically are lacking the end-to-end process orchestration. They do not offer centralized information, what we normally call as a single source of truth. And they lack the agility to scale and to handle in-flight changes. All these deficiencies has an impact on the business. You can see it right here. What this actually means is that your technicians will need to visit the sites more than once. It means it will be very hard to meet the project volumes, and at the end, it will mean higher project costs. At this point, I would like to introduce you to a network rollout tool for project orchestration aimed to solve these rollout challenges. The Amdocs network rollout solutions provide, and this is important, catalog-driven project orchestration tool. Again, a catalog-driven project orchestration tool that is suitable for network rollout in general, and in our case, of course, the small cell rollout. Now, when I say catalog-driven, that is a key advantage of the rollout solutions, and we will elaborate more about it, since the joint solutions of Amdocs and IP Access utilize the catalog with reusable project flow module, just like predefined templates or predefined building blocks for small cell rollout processes that are stored within the catalog. That's a few quick look on the different components of the network rollout solution. In order to accelerate any network rollout, it doesn't really matter if it is just for smaller, any network rollout, you need to have full control and visibility of the entire rollout process. The main core of Amdocs network rollout solution is the project orchestration tool for network build and change processes. You can see it right here in the middle. It provides a common end-to-end process which everyone can share and which runs through the entire organization. As we all know, the end-to-end project orchestration has got touch point with few other systems. We can see on the left-hand side, for example, the business insight coming from Amdocs Smart Cell Placement tool, meaning even prior to the stage of rolling out the network, the phase of planning the demand and the business analytics knowing exactly where to place the new cell site and in what priority we should deploy them in order to get, of course, the better ROI. On the right-hand side, we have another important aspect of the project. That is something that differentiated versus typical business process managers, the typical BPMs, okay? That is the integration with network inventory for the design and assign phase. Think about the gap between the planning and design that is being done in the service provider corporate office versus the actual assignment in real network in real life, and how that can, of course, can impact the project deadlines. Starting from the business insight information coming from Amdocs Smart Cell Placement Tool. The Amdocs Smart Cell Placement Tool is actually an algorithm that provides the intelligence behind the small cell database. The tools enable operators to place small cell in optimal locations by giving them a view into potential interference issues or backhaul issues, and into where small cells will be most effective in alleviating capacity crunches. Let's take, for example, during a project of small cell rollout, the business insight is the ability to answer a few questions like which area should be prioritized for rollout, or which customers are affected by service degradation. By having this insight, we can provide our customers with tools that integrates business aspects with the rollout process. This is a key strength of Amdocs, having the ability to actually leverage its business insight from the BSS over to the OSS tools. Moving to the second pillar, this is, as I said, the core of Amdocs Network Rollout Solution. This is the project orchestration tool. Our main purpose is to accelerate network rollout, and we can achieve this by first having a better control of the entire process, end-to-end. For that, we offer project plan and workflow visibility. You can see them on the screens right here. With an innovative view plan, a bit like London Underground tube map, right? We can see all the project milestone. And at the bottom, the navigation map offering zoomable capabilities to show more details on tasks and events as required. Keep in mind, when I say project flow can represent the deployment of a single site or deployment of the entire rollout of all the new small cells that are needed. That's the beauty of zoomable project plan. Now, in order to manage and control multiple parallel projects that run one beside the other of all these new small cells, we have the management dashboard view, which are usable, configurable. You don't need IT for that. They are usable, configurable, and that provides key information for senior management while allowing project managers to see all key aspects of the project at a glance. As I mentioned earlier, in order to accelerate the rollout process, there is a need for updated information from the network resources, the network itself. This is what we call the single source of truth. By the way, both for the network inventory as well as for the process that everyone can share. Operators really need to have information held in a central repository that can be shared among all these different organizational groups and different users, and having one source of information that is directly synchronized with the actual network and the actual deployment. Over here, we can see the integration with the network inventory, which allows for key network data to be viewed directly from the inventory system. It can also be viewed by field engineer remotely on their tablets, on their smartphone. So the guided field for task can be downloaded to their devices, and they can get update on their task list and specific instruction to be carried out. Let's move to the next part of our webinar, which is small cell network rollout use case. We will focus on main KPI, main key performance indicator, which are, of course, the reducing the total time to complete small cell network rollout.
Right, so I think what I'd like to do is just give you this sort of high-level introduction to the way in which the real-world experience of small cell delivery allows you to understand and explain, if you like, why there are cycle time, I was going to say experience, but there are issues in first deployments and the things that you have to learn. And from all the various enterprise deployments that we've done with different customers around the world, we see a pattern. And that pattern is that you do need to have organizational memory. You need a learning experience to understand what matters in your market, with your typical deployments, and also with the infrastructure that you have in your business today. So speakers talked about all the capability of the Amdocs solution. And what I'll summarize here is it's a short discussion about the things that are then merged into those automation engines. And as an example, in phase one, what we often see is there is no existing or definitive way of saying a customer with this profile and attributes would like a small cell in this place here. And so what you see in early deployments is a learning cycle that says, how am I going to capture the definition of what my customer wants and where they want it? And so that often starts out as emails or relatively informal systems. It migrates to become a work order capture engine of some form. And in early deployments, it can take a few days to negotiate with a customer, what exactly do you mean? And then you need a RF planning cycle. Now, obviously, with very low power cells, certainly down at the 20 milliwatt range, it is unusual to have RF planning on an individual basis. At 100 milliwatts, you probably don't need it. And at 250 milliwatts, which is the upper end of the small cell transmit power, you find that you may or may not need an RF plan. But in every case, what you discover is, irrespective of whether you do or don't need one, you need to make a decision, which means you have to enter our RF planning process, even if it's to say, I do not need a plan. But equally, what happens is we're showing here this sort of common experience of rework cycles. You believe you don't need one or you make a decision. You go to a detailed site survey, and when you get there, you find that something's different, either because of the passage of time, or the customer wasn't asked things, or certain other things have happened in the design requirements. So there is a rework cycle you experience. And then even when you've done a survey and done a plan or decided you don't need a plan and you go to activate, you can find that case by case, depending on macro parameter sets, depending on handover targets, irrespective of whether small cells have SON, and of course they have significant automation and management of their environment, you may find that you need to repeat an activation cycle for some reason. And that may be an optimization spin. But in your early days, you're doing this for the first time. Everything you learn in those first experiences, you carry forward into phase two. And phase two, what you tend to see is operators moving from perhaps anything from 30 or 60 days to small cell enterprise first delivery. They target a business week. There's a 5-day cycle. There is a parallel process. The RF plan review, the surveying, is done quickly against a template. The work order is becoming automated, simplified. And the activation cycle and the confirmation processes can be run within a week. But of course, at that point, you've removed the corner cases. You've understood the traditional experiences that you have in these instances. And your systems that run a forward process that says, I need to do something, also have the ability to automatically handle the exceptions and failures and those conditions around it. And that's really the point at which you know that phase three is real. You can provision, you can deliver enterprise small cells within a day's business, within minutes if necessary, depending on the degree of standardization. And what we see is that the metric of end-to-end delivery time is one thing, but also the total minutes of activity required by humans versus electronic automation reaches very good floor points. And that's really when you know that you're in very good control of your overall delivery cost, and you can start to drive up your deployment volumes, knowing that you're in a predictable place. And that, if you like, is where we merge the experience of IP access with the automation engines from Amdocs, and we create this acceleration effect.
We would like to share with you a case study from a major T1 operators in North America that is in the process of rolling out small cells, starting from the main business drive or the business needs, The project managers and engineers, I would say, realized very quickly that their existing planning tools for macro sites were inadequate. They could not scale for high volume small cell deployment. The TCO was high, they had low process agility, there were scattered processes and tools. Actually, when building new cell site, about 35% of work was performing manually, and often led, of course, to inaccuracy in terms of data, delays, and rework, as Gavin mentioned. Basically, a simple change in the process or an interface impacts many systems and had to be replicated across many systems. Take, for example, while managing parallel small cell projects which differ by type of backhaul or by type of flow or by selecting third parties, etc., and so on, they had to manually adjust the process all over again. Now, Amdocs solutions offer an end-to-end process orchestration, together with integration, as I've mentioned before, with the Amdocs Resource Manager, the inventory solutions. And the results achieved, you can see them right here. We have more than 100 users working in parallel, sharing the same process flow and using the same source of information. And we have more than 2,000 projects running in parallel in production. 2,000 projects running in parallel. Keep in mind, project can either be a single small cell rollout, as we've mentioned, or several small cell being rolled out together. And all over, through process automation, the operator achieve a significant acceleration of time to complete small cell site rollout. That is the key KPI, the key performance indicator. What we aim to do is to reduce the overall time to roll out small cells. Let's recap the results achieved. The main goal is to accelerate small cell network rollout. Now, during the actual rollout, we were able to measure the effectiveness of our solutions. For example, we were able to enable the rapid deployment of thousands of small cells per month. We cut network planning and design time by up to 50%. And overall, we reduced the deployment cost by up to 25%. Let's have a few words about the add-on value of Amdocs ANRS and IP access. This is what this webinar is about. And how we are able to simplify and accelerate the rollout of small cell and greatly reduce the deployment cost. We will start by explaining one of the key components in our solution, which is the industrial approach or the factory approach for rollout using catalog-driven processes. So what the system does is it takes in a set of small cell network and project profile requirements and breaks down those requirements into components block that are stored in the catalog. I will try to explain. So in our example, together with IP access, we actually are taking IP access experience and know-how in small cell rollout processes, and we store those as predefined project flow blocks that describe the different tasks in the process, and of course the dependencies between these tasks, so that those predefined project flow blocks already contains the optimal rollout process that can now be reused very effectively. So as it is mentioned here at the bottom of the slide, design once, deploy many times. Meaning we are able to reuse these design blocks that were modeled in the catalog, and they can be added and they can be edited over time as needed. To conclude, the catalog-driven process enables us to accelerate small cell network rollout through process automation by utilizing the concept of design once and deploy many times. That's the idea.
Okay, thanks, Vika. So from my side, what we've been talking about today is bringing together a joint solution. But I'd like to close by just talking about why we created it. And it's actually about meeting the needs of the 4 key stakeholders, the so-called 4 pillars of the enterprise market offer. And what we've tried to do is make sure that with the overall solution set, we're actually achieving the things that are being asked of us in different operators around the world, which is there is a business owner, and that business owner has said, I will invest. I will invest in network. I will invest in operations. But my purpose is to build enterprise offers for many reasons, not least of which to grow my market, to defend my market, to actually take a new class of business forwards as an alternative to pressures I see in my core business. So what they're saying is, how can I tackle different offers to different enterprise markets to meet their needs? So that's all about the size of the enterprise. It's about the nature of what they want and the way in which they want delivery to be made. The marketing owner needs to know that they can actually shape an offer, that that offer can be built to meet the needs that they have, and that they understand what will the total cost of delivery be, because they need to price it. They need to build a campaign to go and get the right customers. And if they find new markets or they have a plan to move to another market next, as they go across vertical segments, typically in recreational and leisure locations, in retail, in different finance markets, there's all sorts of different solution sets that the marketing teams want to build. They need to know that when they go to the delivery owners, it is possible to get that customization, but from a common base with effectively lightweight customization extension of the very solid and well-defined core. And everything that's delivered from that delivery team needs to be supported. And in each case, whatever's delivered is known in this central repository of truth, that the full system can be supported equally economically. And that's really why we've actually told this story today. And I hope it was interesting. I hope it made sense. And I hope you come away feeling that it's about achieving something in markets around the enterprise offer, but all aimed at ensuring the customers get what they're asking for, which is low complexity, fast delivery of something that transforms the indoor coverage, because that's something that we're hearing repeatedly. Now is the time to start solving the indoor coverage challenge. And the answer to that is to find this automation and this simplification and actually take this market to volume.
I'd just like to summarize all these things that we talked about. This webinar is all about accelerating small cell network rollout through process automation. So Amdocs and IP Access have joined together to module IP Access experience in rollout processes of small cells into the catalog of Amdocs rollout solutions. Once this pack of small cell templates is there, it is very easy to dynamically build the entire project by reusing these templates as building blocks. During this webinar, just a quick recap with high screenshot, you can see it over here. We started by covering the market overview, followed by elaborating about the challenges and the difference between macro site rollouts versus small cell rollouts, and explaining why some of the existing processes and tools are inadequate, perhaps. Following these challenges, we presented Amdocs Network Rollout Solutions, our project orchestration tools that enables to accelerate the small cell rollout through the process automation and provides a visibility and control for all the project users, ensuring the single source of truth, as we've mentioned several times. And finally, we shared a use case with clear KPI to reduce the total time to complete. And of course, share with you the results that were achieved. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. Just as a closing remark, we would like to invite you all to learn more about our solutions by connecting us, Gavin and myself, directly, or visiting our website. Of course, we can also visit us in Mobile World Congress. And since we are ahead of time, we will now have an open Q&A session.
Thanks, Vika. This is Kyle again. Just a reminder to everyone in the audience, please submit your questions via the control panel. Even if we do not get to them today, both of our panelists will receive a copy of your questions to follow up. So we've had a number of questions come in. The first one, Gavin, for you, is ease of deployment considered a barrier to entry for volume deployments?
Well, I think that's a good question because it raises the fear that everyone has that there is complexity. But I think we'd like to say those problems have been addressed, and I think the talk today was all about how other operators around the world that have already gone forward with enterprise solutions have learned many things that have come back through our projects and our experiences that we can then code and define into the procedures and methods that we use in the future. So I think we're very confident now that the time is right to take all these automation systems and wrap them around the knowledge that's now being developed by those early adopters.
Great, thanks. The next question we had in would probably be best to use, Vika. Could you explain the difference between Business Process Manager and the Amdocs rollout solution?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kyle. So, Business Process Managers, also known as BPM, is a tool for process automation and workflow. But it is, in a way, very similar to Excel. We all know Excel, right? It's a great tool with great capabilities, but in order to operate it, you need to have some knowledge about it. It's just a tool. You need to program something in it, right? You need the knowledge of people programming combos, and you need to do something with it. We provide basically an abstraction layer that interconnects with the BPM, with the Business Process Manager. It could be Activos, Lombardi, it doesn't really matter. And actually what we're trying to do is to simplify. The rollout solution does not replace the Business Process Manager. This is not something that we aim to do. We are actually creating an add-on values on top of the BPM and leveraging it in several aspects. For example, the integration, as I mentioned earlier, the integration with the network inventory in order to make sure that we are in full sync with the actual status of the network. Or I also mentioned if you remember, on the left-hand side, there was the integration with the plan of demand tools that provides the business insight. And of course, the most important thing is the network technology specs that are stored and actually stored predefined rollout processes in the catalog. In that way, we can reuse them very effectively without the need for IT, without need for special people from IT that, like in the Excel, know the Excel very well. So we don't need IT people that know BPM very well. We can do it on our own, super users, very easy, very dynamic to change the whole process and use it. So we are actually not replacing BPM, but actually interworking with the BPM and leveraging on top of it.
All right.
Does that answer, Kyle?
Yeah, no, that sounded great. Next one we had come in is are IPXS and Amdocs ready to start customer deployment?
Yeah, well, I'll take that one. This is Gavin here. Yeah, so the answers are very firm yes. We actually have those solutions ready to roll, and the services and the sales teams are active in joint customer engagements now. So this is absolutely something that's ready to move. We'd love to talk to anyone that wants to come forward and say hi.
Yes, definitely.
Great. We had another question pertaining more to your presentations, Vika. Could you explain more about the small cell placement planning tool?
Yes, it's a different. We have a different set of presentations for that, but the whole idea of smart cell placement. This is tools coming from Actix. Actix is a company acquired by Amdocs, and as I mentioned, the small cell placement provides the intelligence behind the small cell database. The tools enables basically operators to place small cell in optimal location when they are considering different aspects. By the way, not only the RF interference between the different small cells, right, but also information coming from the BSS, meaning, for example, we got CRM tickets or complaints for customers. We got information about poor quality of experience from the management system, for example. and even information about the actual real estate, right? We got specific building, we got fiber in certain locations coming to a specific POPs. So when we take all these information together, the real estate, information about the quality of experience, information about CRM, and of course the interference and where to locate these different small cells, this is actually something that the small cell placement it does. It actually compiles everything and analyze all that information and provides clear prediction or actually clear emulation of the real world condition and shows where is the optimal location to place the different small cells. That's the idea basically.
All right. Some other questions we've had from the audience. So, is the solution discussed today restricted to rollout, or does it involve CRM as well?
So I'll take this. Basically, CRM, as everyone knows, Amdocs is focusing both on the OSS as well as on the BSS. CRM is part of the BSS, and since Amdocs holds both ends of the sticks, we actually have a great integration between the BSS tools and the OSS tools. So CRM actually can interconnect, and we can draw information from it directly to, for example, as I mentioned, this small cell placement tool that actually takes information from the CRM.
Great. And the next question, I think, Savika, would be best towards you, but Gavin, feel free to comment on any of these. Does Amdocs small cell rollout solution have the capability for complete network planning, such as transport, backhaul, financial management, risk analysis, and turnkey?
So let's differentiate that these are different planning tools. For example, backhaul is one thing, and for that we have partnership with few of leading backhaul equipment. For example, one of them is a wireless point-to-multiple vendor that we are right now joining forces with them. But apart from the planning of the backhaul itself, it has a lot of meaning in terms of where to place the backhaul, where is the fiber. This information, yes, we have. But planning a wireless backhaul is something completely different, and for that we are utilizing our partners and their tools, integrating into our ecosystem of heterogeneous network, I would say. For other planning, definitely we have several tools. I cannot mention all of them right now, but of course in the OSS and in the BSS, we have several options to look at the customer behavior, look at where are the pain points, and actually try to ease the pain in all these different domains.
So kind of a follow-up to that question, another one we had in, does the small cell solution have the capability for RF and capacity planning?
Yes, definitely yes. The whole concept of small cell placement is both taking into account both the capacity requirements as well as the RF planning. As you know, in terms of RF, in order to do the planning, there are several parameters you need to consider: the modulation, the capacity, the building, and actually you need to have kind of a 3D map in order to making sure that even in building, in city, there are different parameters of multipath. So taking all these considerations into account, this is why we have this specific tool for small cells, because we understand it's a bit different from macro site. It's a bit different because the complexity is much more increased in that way.
Great. Kind of another question that came in. Can you discuss the difference between IBE Wave and the Amdocs small cell solution?
Sure. So IBE Wave is actually an indoor planning tool, I would say. And indoor, this is something actually that we are working together. It's not completely different, but what they are offering is actually an indoor planning. So when you're doing a site survey and you would like to plan indoor, definitely IBE Wave would be a great tool. When considering small cell of outdoors or in the city, so in that case, we prefer to use Actix tools. And as I mentioned, it doesn't really matter. We have both options because we are working together with IBE Wave, with IP Access. We're actually now in the process of building the ecosystem in terms of covering every aspect of small cell deployment. The goal that Amdocs took, and IP Access is the first initiative, is actually to reduce the total time to complete. It doesn't really matter if it is in the phase of the planning and designing, done by Actix in this case with a smart cell placement, or done by IBE Wave. This is the design phase, but there's also the planning and the implementation where IP Access is actually coming and helping us to optimize this whole process end to end.
And I guess kind of a related question, if someone already has an RF planning tool, will they be able to integrate that into the Amdocs tools and achieve the same results?
Well, I don't want to promise anything, but the whole idea is that the planning is just the first phase. This is the phase of before the go, no-go phase. So yes, of course, we can take this planning from a different company and decide, okay, you already have your placement. You don't need us to, you don't need us for the assurance of go, no-go before the project. Let's start the project from the rollout already, okay? Assuming the planning phase and the designing phase were already done. Now, with the Amdocs Network Rollout tool, we are able to focus on the rollout itself and covering the whole process, making sure that the actual design fits what's out there in the network. That's the idea of the rollout. You can either stick it with planning the design and the business insight tools, or just starting from the implementation, moving onwards.
Great. Another question we had, and of course, Gavin, feel free to chime in as well. Do either of you guys know of any business models that work well for multi-operator small cells?
Yeah, well, let me just step in and say that we see a lot of interest in that concept, because the whole point is that if you've got a multi-operator cell, you can start to support things like bring your own device solutions. But I think it's sort of a process we're in at the moment of saying, where does this apply to the market? How big is the market, and how fast do you want to accelerate into it? So there is definitely a case for it. There is definitely a use case. One of the clear examples is that a lot of people are saying now, can I fully mobilize my workforce and completely go to a mobile workforce, take out my VoIP phones, and actually use that as the mechanism to fund this sort of step to a fully mobile solution. And you're going to see a lot of operators saying, well, I want to offer a dedicated handset, SIM, and coverage solution. You'll see parts of the market say, I actually want multi-operator. I've got to bring your own device strategy. And what we're seeing is the actual answer is very different country by country. Certainly it's very topical in a number of countries, and certainly I think it's one thing to watch for the future.
Great. Another question we had in, considering all of your knowledge, both of you guys are in the field, what is the most widely deployed tech by operators today? Do you see more 2G, 3G, LTE, or something else?
Well, I mean, from the small cell side on the residential space, we see a lot of 3G by unit volume. The small cells that we've been selling for some 12 years in 2G actually consistently sell not only into different markets around the world, and that includes sort of mainstream operators, but also rural solutions in remote countries with satellite backhaul. But you actually see them deployed on aeroplanes and cruise liners, all around the world. So by volume, it's 3G, but we see 2G very prevalent, and we see a lot of renewed interest in 2G because it's a very effective voice service delivery platform. It's got a very different core network total cost to 3G, and we see 2G resurging now as a delivery model for voice in tandem with 4G for high-speed data. So I repeat that it's definitely different country by country and region by region around the world. But 2G may live a long time.
Yeah, very interesting. So Zviga, I think this next one would be best for you. Can you discuss in further detail about the analytic capabilities of the small cell solution? Does it rely on an internal or an external tool? And what kind of data sets are used for the analytics?
Are we talking about the small cell placement phase? I need to make sure I understand properly.
Yes, correct.
So there are various parameters. I just explained a few of them. I think at this point, I will take these questions offline because there are so many parameters that are need to be considered. So let's take this question offline.
Great. So we had another question asking, they see the use of the tool and, reducing and optimizing time to deploy, reducing cycle time. Can you talk about the effect it has on cost?
Yes, we all, as Gavin and I showed in the use case that we've gone through, you actually saw the reduction of up to 25% in the network rollout cost. Think about speeding up or accelerating the whole process of small cell, and of course the reduction of up to 50% in the network design time, moving from manual task to automatic task. The whole concept was a reduction of up to 25%. Keep in mind, this is of course changes according to different networks and according to the speed and the scale of the networks. Specific KPIs on this operator, of course, we cannot reveal, but this is in general, we are talking about up to 25% and even much more than that, again, according to the scale, according to the networks with specific details. Gavin, you want to add more to that?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think I would point back to the experiences we had some 15 years ago or more when DSL first rolled out. And on the OSS side, we had a lot of high-touch OSS systems, a lot of human touch to individual processes. And at the first rollouts, you saw something like $150 just for the activation cost. By the time you got 1 million units deployed on an annual basis, you were seeing phenomenal reductions down towards the dollar target. Now, from the small cells perspective, that's not the exact model here, but what we need to do is make substantial changes to all the rollout costs. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is to use tools like the IBE Wave solution, where an iPad application in the hands of the enterprise user with very simple instructions can be actually used by them to photograph their office, to photograph their switching infrastructure or their cable installation, and then photograph the final deployment. That data can be uploaded to central servers that fall within the Amdocs management system. And now the radio planning teams have full access to customer-based site survey data that would traditionally have cost real money for the operator to manage. But just like the residential use case has proven, small cells work best when the user deploys or you support them through the process as simply as you can. And so we're looking for every one of these techniques wrapped up with the specific market offer and the specific customer type to pull down every element of cost in that deployment cycle. And this is undoubtedly a continuous improvement program. There are many more phases of this to come yet.
All right, thanks. That's about all the time we have today. But I want to thank everyone for attending Accelerating Small Cell Rollout through Process Automation, presented by Amdocs in collaboration with IP Access. Again, our presenters today were Gavin Ray, SVP Products and Marketing at IP Access, and Savika Nave, Product Marketing Manager at Amdocs. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.